What's up, you guys? Michael here from the Proper Form Podcast. This is actually episode number 11. This is going to be our last episode of season number 1, and then we're going to come back later after this summer to launch season number 2. We're excited for a whole nother round of guests and all of that, but I'm super excited to wrap this season and this last episode up with none other than the Michael Child. Michael Child, we're going to dive into a little bit more here in a little bit, but is a great friend. He's actually a neighbor to me and my wife, with his wife and his family. And then, but also is a lot of what you've heard me say throughout the podcast episodes is a lot of the magic behind this. So I'm excited to have you. Thanks for being here, bro.
Yeah, man. I'm pumped to be on this side of the camera.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, you actually probably have to be a little bit more aware and focused. And
Yeah. I'm just hoping like everything's recording.
Yes.
I'm assuming it is, but
fingers crossed.
yeah. If this comes out, you'll know it worked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so season number 11. Michael, we're going to kind of treat this just like we have with our other guests. I've asked you, obviously, kind of some things that have described you, who you are, what you do, and then we'll kind of use that to navigate some of our conversation, so learn more about you.
Yeah.
I also want to chat kind of about our friendship and our family dynamics, since we are neighbors, and also both of our entrepreneurial journeys and how those have really cohesively happened in very similar times, like literally times. And then dive deeper into more of how and what we've learned from this podcast experience.
Yeah.
So the things that Michael had said that really describe and define him, he used some very elegant words. Endlessly loved by God, super cool. Husband to superwoman. Yep. Father of 2 incredible kids, music producer / mixing engineer. Very cool. A finisher.
Yeah. Now that you say that out loud, that sounded better in my head typed.
Yeah.
Finisher.
Finish him.
Finish him.
What is that off of?
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Yeah. Wow, that's a throwback.
That is a throwback. Yeah.
Man, probably got some listeners that may not even know what that is. Yeah. we'll dive deeper into what that means.
Yep.
Idea chaser. I like that. And then optimist.
Yep.
So kind of starting from the top, loved by God, husband to superwoman, father to 2 incredible kids. Tell us about them.
Yeah, I'm married to Wendy, and she is an just incredible human being, kind of holds our family together. Yeah. Just infinitely more productive than I am. Infinitely more successful in life than I am.
No.
Way better looking, way funnier than I am. Just, she's a great human and just way out of my league.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we've been married, I think coming up on 13 years. I could be wrong about that. No, it's 13 this year. Yeah, it'll be 13 in October.
How long together before you guys got married?
We dated for about a year before we got married, and we knew each other for about another year before that.
Okay.
We knew quick.
Really?
Yeah. It was
first seeing each other. Was it friend groups? Was it music?
Yeah. So when I was, I was like 19 or 20. I interned at a recording studio in Colorado Springs, where we grew up, and the first month or so that I was interning there, this really cute girl was recording her album with the guy that I was working with.
Yeah.
And, we had a chemistry. She was 18 at that point.
Crazy.
And it was like her last 2 months in high school is when we met. But we would joke all the time and hang out. And the guy I was working with, he wrote a lot of music with her. And so she would come over and they would write music together and stuff. And I would, just get coffee and help out around the studio. But but she was dating somebody.
Oh,
so that was tricky. So it was forbidden fruit at that point.
Yeah.
So then she left for college and she went to Dallas Baptist. And so she came back for spring break, single.
Nice.
And so that in that time frame, I kind of
Made a move.
Made a move. Yeah, and after we started dating that summer, after her first year of college, and then dated long distance for a while, which is tough.
And were you in school during that time, or
no.
were you just you were doing music?
I was working at the recording studio, and yeah. So she came back that summer. We started dating, and then we were dating for like 6 weeks and talking about getting married.
Really?
It was really quick. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, she went back to school, and then when she came back for spring break, after that summer, she came back for spring break in March. It was a really fun thing because she came back with like 8 friends from school.
Okay.
Like they all road tripped out together. Nice. And so I proposed to her while they were all out
so there. From that summer to that spring break, it's like, I don't know, 9 months?
Yeah, yeah. And I went out there once or twice to hang out with her, and she came back for 1 or 2 weekends and stuff, and their winter break and stuff. But yeah, it was kind of tough to date long distance, but we just knew,
That's so cool. So. Dang. I'm guessing was FaceTime a thing then? I think maybe.
I don't think it was FaceTime. It was maybe Zoom
or Skype.
Or Skype. I was Skype. Yeah, it was Skype. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. A lot of just long phone conversations, a lot of Skype calls. And then we got married. So we got engaged in March and then married the following October.
That's amazing.
So, and then she moved back to Colorado.
So what year was that then?
That was 2011.
Wow. Okay. Yep. And then you guys migrated, made your move here to Texas. What year was that?
2012.
2012.
Yeah. So when she was at Dallas Baptist, she was on the weekends driving up to Plano to lead worship at a church, Chase Oaks Church. And they really wanted her to work there. And even when we got engaged and she was going to move back, they were like, can you just stay around? We don't have a job for you, but can you just stay around? She's like, I got to move back. I can't just stay here, Yeah, in 2012, summer of 2012, they called and offered her a job. And so we just kind of left our hometown and picked up and moved to Texas. And so, we've been here since 2012, had a brief stint in Nashville for a couple of years. And then, we're coming up on,
12 years
living here for 12 years, I think, yeah.
And so I'm trying to start to piece some of the pieces of when, obviously, I got to know you and when you guys moved into the house across from us. You have always done and produced music, mixing, engineering outside of your home. You've done that at studios. So the house that you were in before you moved into your current home, was that the house you were in from 2012 to, what was it, like 2017, 28?
Well, we moved into that house in 2015. Okay. So we were only in that house for about 2 years.
You moved into this current house?
No.
Okay, yeah.
The one that's like 2 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
So we moved in there in 2015, I think. Yeah, 2015. But we just lived in an apartment in Richardson.
Got it.
Before that, and I worked out of different studios, which was cool. It was kind of a pain, but it was cool. You'd get to meet a lot more people that way than just kind of working from home. But yeah, and just having that time around other people to kind of hone the craft in and make connections, and that's always good. So
if you could, I know this might be hard for you, but I would love if you could humble brag yourself a little bit, because you and Wendy, like, I'm raving fans of you guys, but like there's so much that I don't know of how y'all's world works. But could you start to tap into a little bit of what does a music producer do? What does a mixing engineer do? How does that all connect with vocalist, artists, maybe people that just do instruments?
Yeah.
And then also, as you do that, like, I know a lot of the music you guys have produced, Wendy has personally produced, has been charted. There's been songs and stuff that have been on like very famous commercials and things of that nature. Could you discuss that journey?
Let's see where to start with that. A music producer is kind of the when an artist has a song they want to record, The music producer is kind of just the person that makes it happen. So they work alongside the artist to kind of dial in the song and make the song the best it can be. They work with the recording engineer to make it sound and get recorded the best way. And then they work with the musicians to make sure they're all playing the right thing, etc. That's kind of the old school definition of it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they kind of do everything. So I'm a music producer that I work with the artist and help them write and finish the songs. I record all of the instruments myself.
Wow.
I play all the instruments and record them.
That's insane.
What it used to be, guys in suits behind the big glass window at a recording studio, they would, they'd kind of just come in and they'd kind of oversee the whole process, but you had a different person who was engineering, like doing the actual recording on the big, console that you see. And then, talking to all the musicians, telling them to play this, like making sure they get the right vocal takes, things like that.
Yeah.
So nowadays, just with technology and everything, it's and with budgets and stuff too, having that many people involved is just expensive.
Yeah.
And so really, big artists do that for sure. But even SoundCloud artists now, like SoundCloud rappers and stuff now are just doing it all themselves, like on a MacBook Pro in a hotel room, and it's pretty wild. So so I'm a music producer, and I did that primarily for a long time. And while doing that, I found that my favorite part of the process was actually mixing the record. So after everything is recorded, you go back and you mix everything. So you put, you just dial in the sound, you dial in the levels, make sure that the vocals are loud enough and the drums sound good. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just that. But that's where kind of the finished sound of a record comes from. And I just loved that process. I would be doing it while I was working on the song, working on coming up with parts and stuff. I'd just like take 30 minutes and just like make the drums kind of sound awesome, That's cool. So I just really loved that. So I kind of moved into doing that primarily. Now, other producers and artists will send me stuff that they've recorded. And when I say stuff, I mean, they're like track by track. So you'll have a snare drum mic and the kick drum mic and the bass guitar and then electric guitars. And that can be, a whole session. That can be anywhere from 12 to, I've had some songs that have 180 tracks in them.
What?
Like that, what that could be is like 30 different drum tracks, right? And you have multiple kick drums and multiple snares and claps and snaps, and then you have all the percussion, and then you have 3 different basses for different sections of the song, and then you have pop music really took it up a notch, because when you're recording vocals, like getting like the Katy Perry sound that you hear nowadays, you have to record a lot of different stacks of vocals. So it's not like the old school, like 3 people singing into a mic for background vocals. It's not. It's not that. And Wendy is like freakishly good at this, but she can like
totally
sing the same. You double the track, so you do one recording for the left side and one recording for the right side, and it just makes everything sound fuller. But you do that then 4 times for the melody, and then you do that 4 times for the alto part and 4 times for the tenor part, and then you do a high octave, like a falsetto type thing on top of it. And man, I've had songs for Wendy that had 40 background vocal tracks, and that's pretty normal now, especially in pop music. It's not as normal like with a full band generally, but so then I take all of that and make it sound like what you hear on Spotify.
That's crazy.
So there's one more step in the process, which is called mastering. And those guys take just the final mix, and then they kind of do some stuff to it to make it sound finished.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. That's usually guys that have been in music world for 40 years and just have these amazing ears and can tell you what a frequency is just by hearing it, that kind of thing. But but yeah, that's primarily what I do. So
there's a lot that goes into all that.
There is, yeah. I mean, to make something seem easy takes a lot of work.
Yep.
A lot of work.
That's good.
And I don't know. I think that applies to if you're building a chair.
Yeah.
To make a chair like look totally normal and not completely out of whack, like you have to be really detailed with the angles that you cut everything at and the length that you cut everything at. And there's just so much that goes into it. Now you have these, CNC machines that they can do stuff within 1/10,000th of an inch. And everything looks normal, but it takes a long time to make something look right or sound right.
I think there's such a disservice that we can sometimes do to ourselves based off of like our crafts or the gifts that we've been given or that we have or do. We just take for granted how hard it is of what we're actually maybe really good at.
Right.
But to others, like it's completely foreign. Like that's why I'm so fascinated with what you do. But but then to really step back and be like, okay, no, this is actually like there's a need for this. Like a machine can't always do that. Like AI is not gonna can't fully take over your job. Like there has to be that personal touch. Getting close, maybe. But there's still just that personal touch. And I think if they're like that could really encourage a lot of people that whatever their profession is and their creative touch or craft that they have to really dive into the uniqueness of it. Because there's value there and they add value. And by making it look easy, making it the finished product looked amazing and crisp and clean is what really shows, the professionalism and the wisdom and the experience that they have.
Yeah. One thing I learned, it was probably 6 or 7 years ago. I just had this epiphany. I was working on an album for somebody, and I was working with another producer on it. And this producer was so annoyingly detailed about stuff. He would be like, "You hear that right there?" And I'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And he would just he'd be like, "Listen, yeah, it's right there. Yeah, listen, you hear that?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I kind of hear something, I guess," but nobody would notice that.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would say in my head, and it clicked in my head that like me and this producer probably skill wise were pretty equal, but the difference was he wasn't willing to settle with nobody will hear that. And the difference between somebody who's really good at something and somebody who's great at something is they're willing to put in the extra work to go a little bit further. And that is a really difficult discipline to cultivate.
100%.
To go back and, in my world, to go back and re-listen to something. And really, when I listen to stuff, I'm listening with my gut and kind of just thinking like, how does this feel to me? And I have left so much music. I've let so much music go out the door that something didn't totally feel right about it. And that's the difference between me and like Dr. Luke or some massive producer is they're like, well, we can't, something's wrong with that. Like we have to fix that before we let it out,
Totally. I think that's been a huge friction point in trying to build a brand for myself. And not everyone's desires to build a brand. Some people's might just be a solopreneur and do it themselves.
Right.
But like even yourself, like you're locked in your room and it's completely soundproof. Like you are your brand, but there's just such an elevated piece of experience and service that you can offer. And you have to decide what that is for you in regards to maybe success or the image or the likeness
Right.
or the final product you want to put out there.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, man, I really want to build a great brand that I can step away from and that can really run self-sufficiently, but exceptionally on its own.
Yes.
And that's putting systems and processes and step-by-steps in place. Right. And it comes down to just those small things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like showing people that you care.
Yeah.
That's man, you ever walk into the post office?
Yep.
And you're like, excuse me. And the person's just like,
yep, I don't care.
Like, hey, excuse me. Like, they don't care. And that's fine.
Yeah.
They don't have to care. That's okay. But like, why does everybody talk about the DMV or the post office when they talk about the worst places in the world to have to go? And it's because those people don't care. So if you know, I've learned in my business, like people want talent. People want to work with talented people. Yep. For sure. They want the product that they're getting from you to be good. Yeah. But that's not the most important thing. They want to work with somebody who really cares about their stuff. And I imagine it's the same in personal training world.
Yep.
You know, they can go to a big box gym and get somebody who's just going to show them a program and then just stand there and look at their phone while they bench press or whatever. But to like, if they come into LLT and they're greeted by the team and 100%. You're asking about their family and their kids and how they're feeling that week, and that's the difference. You know, they're going to know that you care. Yeah. And I think that's incredibly important in whatever you're doing. It's just the care. Yeah,
the analogy we use, I think I've said it maybe in a previous episode, is we have a dating phase with our clients as we start with them to getting to know each other. It also helps kind of just like soften the kind of like the risk that they're taking of like entrusting us, and also of course paying for a service. Yeah. But then what I tell the coaches, kind of that next wave and ripple is like, of course, give them great workouts and a great experience, but they're going to end up coming initially for the workouts, but staying long-term because of the relationship that you build with them. Totally. And that's 100% up to you. Yep. And if you want to look around this gym and other successful studios and the longevity of a trainer's success, I guarantee you, I would take it to the grave. Yep. A big reason is because those people know how to cultivate and keep relationships.
Yes, absolutely.
And man,
but you can, that applies to anything. It's not just one-on-one. It's like you can be an accountant. Yeah. And if you care, and if you show people that you care about their finances, like they'll come back every year, you know? Man, huge.
Just to pivot a little bit, I've heard some really cool stories of some things you guys have done, you and Wendy, in regards to music producing, mixing, but also charting and being on. Could you share a few of those really cool like moments where you're like, oh, we just woke up and this is awesome?
Yeah. So back in 2014, she was actually on The Voice, which was super cool. I'll clarify that by saying she got to the final stage of The Voice, but she didn't. The teams filled up before she got an audition.
Before she went live on TV.
Before she went on TV. Yeah. It was like right before they filled up. So yeah, the way it works is there's four teams. Each coach picks, I think it's 12 people for their team. So 48 people, but they have 100 people ready to audition.
Didn't know that.
Yes. So it was a really cool process. So she auditioned the first open call round, made it past that. Next week, she went and auditioned the next one. Yeah. Made it past that. Next week, she went and auditioned the next one, made it past that.
That's so cool.
And then they have the executive audition where they actually flew her out to LA. Wow. And I think at that point, there's like 200 people. But she was, Mark Burnett was in that audition. Wow. Who's the creator of the show and a million other shows. So if you've ever watched American Idol where they have like they divide the room into two and then say like, everyone in this group, you're going home. Yes. It's that thing. And she was in the other group. So she made it to the final,
Yep.
the auditions. And then that is, all in all, it was like 6 weeks in LA. I mean, it was a long time. So they fly her out. She's out there. She gets to stay in a hotel with all the other contestants and everything. And they do wardrobe fittings. You get a voice lesson every day, and work with like an insane vocal coach. And then you go do rehearsals with their house band, which their house band is just top of the top LA musicians. Like they're incredible. And then they flew family out for 2 weeks of filming.
Yep.
There's like a week of filming, and that's like B-roll, like behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
So when you see like the interviews with the friends and family and stuff, which funny story about that was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. We had our interview with Carson Daly, host of the show, right? And so I'm starstruck. Like it's TRL, Carson Daly, you know, standing right there. He's way taller in real life than he looks on camera. I mean, he's got to be 6'4", 6'5", something like that. Like he's a tall dude. And, you know, here I am 5'7", just standing. So the three of us are standing at a table, and, you know, he's just a total pro. I mean, he like does interviews for a living. He was so the first thing he asked me was like, so he's like, so you guys met in a recording studio, huh? And something happened and my brain just broke.
Yeah.
And I just went, uh-huh. And then there was just like this awkward pause. And then he just like, okay. And then he just like moved on. And inside I was like, did I just get my wife kicked off The Voice? Oh they're like, we love her, but this guy cannot be around at all.
Yeah, take that out.
But it was super cool. Super cool experience. So after that week of filming B-roll and stuff, then it goes to filming the auditions. Yeah. And at that point, they take all the cell phones and computers away from the contestants. They're in a separate hotel. And every morning they find out who the 20 people that are going to be auditioning that day are. And the way that they do it is they try to make it a playlist like for the judges, because if the judges have to sit and listen to 20 different auditions, you don't want to put like 8 country artists in a row. Yeah. So they kind of just try to mix it up. And of course they put people that they're sure are, you know, and then they do little stories and stuff. So, and they have things planned. Like, so for Wendy, her brother is in the Air Force and he was stationed overseas, and they got him to record a video that they played for her during that Carson Daly interview. Wow. So they're really good at it, man. But so yeah, I'm just waiting in a hotel by myself for 5 days. Yeah. Just wait, like every morning, getting the email about who's auditioning, and her name's not on. So we get to day 5, and like 2 hours into it, they said, yeah, teams have filled up. Man. So she didn't get an audition.
Pretty cool experience though.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very, very cool. So, and then another time I got to go back out there. It was actually the very next season. Yeah. There's a girl in town that I produced an album for. Her name's Maddie Davis. And she actually made it she almost won. I mean, I think she was in the top 5.
Is she from here?
She's from McKinney. Yeah. Incredible artist. And so she actually flew me and a friend of mine out to watch the show. And so we get there and we're in the friends and family audience section, and the producer walks out and they're like, yeah, so you guys just hang tight. In about 20 minutes, we're going to have the band that's coming. We're just going to record a quick band performance for the show that we're going to air later. So just hang tight, and we'll let you know what's up. And so I would like raise my hand. I was like, hey, who's the band? She's like, oh, it's Coldplay.
Oh my gosh.
So Coldplay like had a single coming out and they recorded that song just like before the show, like before the live taping. It was so cool.
Dude.
Yeah. It was super fun.
That is epic.
Okay. And then you asked chart topping. Okay. So when we got pregnant with Charlie, our first, and being dumb musicians that we are, like, instead of doing like a normal birth announcement, we wanted to do something music related. So we had this idea to do lullaby versions of songs that were really popular when we were growing up.
Yes.
So we recorded 8 songs for an album called When 90s Kids Have Kids.
Yes.
And it was a sleep. The artist name for it is Sleep My Darling. We just thought it'd be really sweet, really fun. Had a great artist make the cover for it. Like, it was just a really fun process. Like, had fun with it. So Wendy came up with everything and like recorded everything herself, and then I just mixed it and we just kind of put it out. And so it got discovered by an influencer that goes to our church. We didn't even know she went to our church at the time, but she has a show on HGTV, and she posted about the album and said, "Oh my gosh, these songs are so good. My kids love this." The end of that week, where that album charted on Billboard Kids in the top 25 kids albums. I think it got something like 250,000 plays like in a week.
It's amazing.
Which is so funny because I spent my whole life wanting to have a Billboard charting project that I work on, and it ends up being an album of lullabies that my wife and I recorded. So
that's so
I'll
cool,
take it. But we've since, she's recorded, I think, 5 or 6 more albums of that, and it's really cool. Like, it's kind of magic how you start playing it and the kids just kind of fall asleep or calm down. My daughter listens to it every night, falling asleep, and so check it out. It's Sleep My Darling.
Yep. Well, that's so cool that, like, I mean, it could go into influence or just social media world. Like, the one post that you don't think is going to end up taking off, takes off.
Yes.
Or the one product or the one service. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, you guys are just making lullabies.
Yeah.
Because it was something personally that, like, sparked the desire.
Yeah.
And was just kind of like a fun outlet for y'all. And it turns into a freaking charted album.
Wild, dude. It was wild.
But that's so cool. I was doing a small, like, I got to be highlighted for some advertising that we do. Mm-hmm. And the lady at the end of it, they asked me like a question of like, what makes me tick?
Yeah.
And they were asking me to like tie it in on kind of work and life.
Yeah.
And what I kind of pinpointed, I was like, man, with my wife or my kids or my business, I think what really makes me tick and brings so much joy to me is when someone just has that aha moment.
Yeah.
When they figure out a new movement and how to do it correctly and like they actually feel it.
Yes.
Same thing for my kids. Mm-hmm. Like when my boys do something that making a goal or riding their bike and do something out of their comfort zone that like, oh yes, I did that. They gained the confidence. Yeah. They just expanded their thought process or thinking or learned something new. Mm-hmm. Like those are the moments that really bring me alive. And she was like, that whole interview, you were the most excited and eye-open when you were talking about your boys.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that really hit.
Yeah.
But like I think those are kind of the endorphin kind of shots and the highs for me.
Yeah.
For personal and business is when people just have those moments that really click and tick and bring such a light and a joy to their face.
Yes. Kids are the best.
Yeah.
And the worst.
Yep.
But mostly the best.
Yeah. I describe the boys as like the Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah.
Like one moment they're sweet and the next one moment they're sour and then the next moment they're sweet.
Those mood swings, man, are no joke.
Yep.
Yeah. My daughter will be screaming 1 second and then I'll be like, do you want to watch Moana?
Yeah.
She's like, yes.
Moana's a good one.
Yeah.
So our kids are about the same age.
Yeah. No, literally.
Yeah, like literally. I mean, so we had Jeremiah, he's 4, And then is it him and Charlie that are no, him and Milo have this around the same birthday.
Around the same birthday,
Charlie and Josiah
yeah.
were born literally the same day.
Yes.
2.5 hours apart.
Yeah.
Which is insane. And then your youngest son, Milo, was Jeremiah's birthday is the August 18th, and Milo's is 12th. Okay, I was say 13th. I'm sorry. No, Jeremiah's is 13th, and then Milo's is the 12th. So they're a day apart, but age-wise, is it almost exactly 2 years?
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And then Michael started and built out his garage into his music studio where he produces all of that now.
Yep.
We'd love to hear a little bit about that. I know we still have a bit to go over, but I started my business out of my garage and built out my garage into a gym before we ended up getting the studio and where we are now. And Michael, at the same exact time, he and Wendy were building out their garage to be a music studio. And it was kind of like right when I think, correct me if I'm wrong, like we were starting to get to know each other, kind of become friends, but like we weren't really friends yet. But I remember following you on Instagram and like showing Sophie videos, like, look at these guys, they're crazy. They're double walling their room.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stories you would post would be like super late at night because you're doing it after Charlie, maybe Milo wasn't here yet.
No, it was before both of them.
It was before both of them. Again, I mean, you can shoot like a gun in there. Not that I don't think Michael has.
No.
But it is completely soundproof.
Yeah, there's sound absorption, which is like stuff you put on the wall to make sure there's no echo in the room. Yes. And there's a bit of that, but it's also soundproof, meaning sounds from outside don't get in very easily and sounds from inside don't get out, which I think is the more important thing to me that I'm, because I like the way it's built now, I can play drums full volume in there at 2 a.m, and you might hear like like really low.
Yeah.
But you'd have to be 10 feet away from the house to even hear it. So
if you want to geek out about like waves and sound frequency and how sound travels, talk to Michael. We might lose some of the listeners if we do that. You've shared some of that with me. You'll
definitely lose listeners.
I think it is cool though. But like again, one of those things that what we just talked about, going back to like not a normal person would just think of that, but like those are all little things that you have to perfect to build such an amazing experience for the listener who's listening to the music that you're producing and for the clients that you're working with, the artist.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes to that idea chaser adjective I gave you, or descriptor, I guess, is that I just get kind of obsessive about stuff. Yeah, and I just go on these rabbit trails for sometimes weeks on end. And it's fun for me. It's not fun for anybody that lives with me. But because they're like, what are you thinking about? What did you learn today? What have you done today? And be like, well, I watched like 2 hours of YouTube about guitar pickups.
My gosh.
Like,
that's crazy. So make sure that we don't leave the listeners on the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Those last few things: finisher, idea chaser, optimist. How do those define you?
Yeah, I think finisher, probably a better word is editor. So I'm not really a good blank page person. My wife is amazing. She can sit down at a piano and out of nothing write a song.
Okay.
And it's incredible. And I just don't, it's not just with music, just in general. Like,
I gotcha.
I don't have the gift of doing that. But what I can do really well is like when she writes that song, I can hear it and say, okay, I love this idea, but I think this phrase could be better. This phrase feels clunky. This phrase is amazing. Run with this. Like, and I'm a really good editor. Which lends well to mixing music because the guys who record music are the blank page people. They're the come up with new ideas guy. I'm like, love the idea. Let's make it sound good now. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the one that's really fine tuning and sharpening what they've already created.
Yes.
So in finisher, that's what you mean by finisher.
Exactly.
In the sense of them being able to bring that to you and you really being able to fine tune and craft it to be an amazing final product.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Love that. And then optimist.
I was just looking for one more. description.
One more word.
One more word. I'm just hopelessly optimistic.
Yeah.
Generally, like I'm always, I think I'm a future oriented.
Yeah.
In the way that I think, and I just think it's not the end till it's the end. You know, it's like there's always the chance that whatever bad situation is happening is going to be better.
Yep.
You know, so I try to live life that way.
Yeah.
I try to live life with that kind of optimism and that hope, you know, and try to see things in possibilities rather than, I don't know, and like dead ends.
Yeah.
I guess.
Do you think having your kids has transformed that in a leaner way, or has that maybe done the opposite and actually made you just like, man, I have control of nothing? And
yes, man, yeah, kids, they blow your world up, make it the most beautiful thing ever, and they also shrink it to the smallest thing.
Yeah.
The smallest little things become so important.
Yeah.
And the huge things that you used to spend your time thinking and dreaming about become not important at all.
Yeah.
And so definitely my kids they've reined that in a little bit, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
They've I would say they've reprioritized things.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced that. Just like, man, I used to think about this. This used to be super important to me. And now I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, so it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's probably been one of the hardest things for me as a parent is not bringing home the stress of work and situational things throughout that day or that time that have nothing to do with my kids.
Yes.
And, you know, the way that I reflect my energy and my mindset and my joy and my sadness, they mirror that back. And the way that they react or respond or want something, but then they don't know how to properly communicate that. We're also not great as parents at communicating it all the time.
Yeah.
But it comes out in tantrums or demands.
Right.
When really it's just like, man, I got to leave all that at the door and do my best to be present with them, ask them how their day is, literally get down on their level. And I've just found when I do that and I get down on their level and talk to them and cuddle with them. Yeah. And it, like their whole perception or just kind of personality in that moment shifts to something so much more calm.
My daughter's new thing that she says to me, she'll be watching a movie and I'll be sitting there with her. Yeah. Looking at my phone. And she goes, "Daddy, watch it with me. Daddy, stop looking at your phone. Watch it with me." And that is like,
yep, I get that.
That is a punch in the gut.
Yep.
She just wants, they just want you to be with them.
Yep. Yeah, they just want that quality time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, man, as we shift and kind of get into some of our concluding pieces, what are maybe some things that you wanted to discuss? Obviously, you've helped be such an intricate part to this podcast. Yeah. And been so fun bringing literally this space to life, but also our guest. Yeah, what do you got?
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me be a part of this. This has been super fun. We're both just people who go and do stuff, and so just figuring it out has been fun. The first thing I wanted to say, nobody knows what they're doing. No one. Yep. We have this idea in our mind that there are people who, well, this guy's been doing it a long time, so he's like, he knows his stuff front and back. That's not true. Yep. Everyone is figuring it out as they go. And you can take the pressure off of yourself to have to know everything. Yeah. And I had the experience of working on a record with one of my heroes back a few years ago. And there was this moment, and it was real small, but I was asking him how he wanted something to sound, and he said, "I don't know, what do you think?" And it just hit me like, oh, like he doesn't know how it should sound.
Yeah.
He doesn't like know like this is the correct way.
Exactly.
He's figuring it out. And
Yep.
it freed me so much to know that like we have this comparison game that we play in our head that we
Yep.
think, well, those guys who are in the big leagues, man, they just know their stuff. They know exactly. No,
Yeah.
they just work a little bit harder. They just like we talked about earlier, they just dig in a
Yep.
little bit more, but everybody's figuring it out the same way
Yeah.
that you are. So that's the first thing. Second thing I would just say is relax. This has just been something that's huge for me lately is we always have a gap in our brains between where we currently are and where we think we should be.
Yeah.
And that never goes away,
Yep.
you know? But we always feel like we're in the wrong place for whatever reason. And the truth is like, we're not.
Yep.
We're not in the wrong place. Like you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. And I've just found all the stuff that I look back on so many of the things that I worried so deeply about for so long that did not mean a thing.
Yep.
You know, maybe it was how I looked in an Instagram post or something stupid I said or a big decision that I made at the time that was big. And it just turns out it wasn't that big of a deal. And just like, you're okay.
Yep.
You know, you can relax. You're okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. It's going to work itself out.
It's good. I think those are so good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we've done this podcast. Like,
Totally.
I know nothing about podcasting, but also going back to what you said about like we're all figuring it out is not being the smartest in the room, being okay to admit that because everyone's figuring it out.
Totally.
But then seeking guidance where people have it probably a little bit more figured out than you.
Yeah.
Or at least looks like they do.
Yeah.
So that's why being able to have you with a lot of video and photography and just your creativeness is like you're really good at lighting and all those things. And you've maybe made comments about like figuring it out as you go.
Yeah.
But like I know that you're a man of your word, you're trustworthy, and you've helped just kind of bring this space to life.
Yeah.
And we're kind of figuring it out as we go.
Yeah.
But because a lot of the experience you have with music and production and execution, you've been able to fine tune that way faster than I ever would have been able to myself.
Yes. Yes. Figuring it out is it's the fun of all of it, you know? So now I get to ask you that since this is our last episode of the season.
Yeah.
Based on who you are, who you become. I can't think of the whole phrase that you say. What is it? Based on
who you are, what you're doing and where you want to go.
Yes.
What are a few things that could add value to our listeners?
Yes.
You want me to answer that?
I want you to answer that.
Man, thanks. I'm excited for this first season to be done. Not in a sense of like I want a break. If anything, I think it's honestly been a lot less stressful and time consuming than I thought. Just because, just so you guys know, on the back end, behind the scenes, we shoot like 3 to 5 episodes in one day.
Yeah.
And so this is the 11th episode. We've only had like 3 or 4 shooting days.
Yeah.
It's very exhausting.
Yeah.
But I thrive in the one-on-one and the face-to-face. And so that's why a non-negotiable for me for this podcast is having the face-to-face connection, being able to show our listeners the studio who maybe have not seen Luxury Lifestyle Training, see the office, and really see that connection of all these, for me, kind of my vision and the visual that I've been given is kind of creating this root system of entrepreneurial ventures. And that's Gym Builds, LLT, and this podcast. And so, I think for any of the listeners, some things that I think could add value to them from myself is, God, I don't want to reiterate what you kind of said, but just starting somewhere. Giving yourself grace. And maybe I'm saying that to myself looking in the mirror is I just need to give myself more grace. throughout the process and and take more breaths.
Right. Yeah.
And tell yourself rhetorically, mentally, and maybe even verbally out loud is it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
And to reflect back, I think in moments where I end up maybe catching a breath and catching a moment of solitude and relaxation is when I really look back at where we started.
Totally.
And being grateful for where we are, but want to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's just for me and knowing kind of what makes me tick. I've had to really, I don't want to say accept, but just in regards to getting distracted by the noise of other people's success.
Right.
And that they're already ahead.
Yes.
And they're past that disconnect of where you want to be and they've already reached that place.
Yeah.
Is that, man, it's a constant reminder that I'm in this for the journey, not the destination.
Right.
I know that's super cheesy, but it's like, man, if I could just snap my fingers and be this multi-million-dollar successful training business, that would be really cool. But like, I wanna enjoy the process.
Yeah, totally.
And the journey of what it takes to get there. And
can I ask you a follow up to that?
Yeah.
I'm just curious about this. I think we both had a similar experience since we launched in 2019.
Yeah.
And I say launched, I think 2019 was the first year I was doing music stuff full time.
Okay.
Like full time freelance. But and you launched a gym that year as well.
2020
okay.
for me.
Yeah. So those first 2 years for me were an explosion of work.
Yeah.
I was booking clients a month out at one point.
Yeah.
And I think LLT was similar, where you guys kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of exploded right off the bat. But recently for me, I kind of plateaued.
Yep.
Work-wise, and now it's kind of dipped. Mm-hmm. How have you handled that?
Yeah.
Because it's been pretty tough for me.
Yeah.
And I've learned that you don't wait till things are slow to start ginning up work.
Yeah.
and connecting and reaching out to people. I don't know what like how have you personally walked through that? Man,
it's like trying to wrestle inside of what are those called?
A mud pit?
No, like when you're the prisoners when they get into the
a straitjacket.
Yeah, it's like trying to wrestle in a straight. That's what I feel like. Because like you want to get out and you're exerting energy, but you don't feel like it's maybe going in the right places. And so but man, I've just the resilience of seed planting. Yeah. And if anything, it really like it's backing your back into a corner and really testing your faith and yourself, but also what you're building, your brand, your business, and just choosing to fight forward out of that corner has been what's helped me continue to press.
So that's motivating to you.
Yes.
Fighting out of a corner.
It is, but it's also exhausting. Yeah, it's stressful.
Yeah.
And so, if that answers your question, I think it's just like...
No, I was just curious as to how...
There's no choice. I mean, I was doing a bit of a gym install yesterday, and I had 2 young high school boys come with me. Yeah. And it was fun to be able to chat with them in the car. And he asked me kind of a question about building a business. I'm like, man, what kind of high school kid asking a question like that? But it was awesome. Yeah. And I told him, I said, man, like relate it to you being in sports. Yeah. Like you have to be a team player. He wants to play basketball. I said, think about basketball. You can't just go on the court and expect to just get the ball and shoot. Yeah. You got to run your butt back down and play defense. You got to guard. You got to stay after, help grab the water bottles. Yeah. Make sure you have all your equipment. Like there's so many additional pieces. Yeah. Yeah. And I said, but take it a next step as a business owner, as a leader, maybe on that, like you have to literally choose every day to wake up and go put yourself on that court. Totally. Like as a business owner, we don't get to just wake up and be like, oh, I don't really feel like doing that today. Yeah, totally. And that is hard. It's hard. Being able to keep that stamina and that endurance. Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely not perfect at it. And I have moments of burnout, if you want to call it. Totally. But like, you got to pick up and keep going.
Yeah. I love that, man.
So I don't know
Yeah.
if that kind of answers that
No, it does.
that question.
I am kind of like not anti grind set, but
Yeah.
I'm not motivated by that. I'm not motivated by the Gary V's and
Yeah.
Hormozis of the world. You know,
Yeah.
it actually demotivates me because
Yeah.
it like creates this mountain of work in my head.
Yeah.
Is like long list of things that I need to do.
Yep.
And that overwhelm makes me just shut down, you know? So
Yeah.
that's why things like, hey, just relax. Like
Yeah.
I find that I am way more productive, way more effective at
Yeah.
what I'm doing when I'm like, hey, it's okay.
Totally.
And part of the thing for me with the plateau, I realized like, I mean, just a couple metaphors with it. Like you can't inhale for forever.
Yeah.
At one point you have to exhale.
That's good.
You know, same
Yeah.
thing. It cannot be summertime forever.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be winter.
Praise God, because we live in Texas.
I know, right? I know I say that it's like
Gosh.
98 degrees outside
Yeah,
right
it's
now,
gonna be
but it can't be
20
summertime.
degrees.
It can't be party
Yep.
all year. Like there has to be a winter time.
Mm-hmm.
Another example, if you look on a stock, like a stock chart, you know, up and
Yeah.
to the right, and we think all the time, like, man, success, it's just always up and to the right.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the long term
Yep.
performance of a stock, it's like, yeah, it is up and to the right. But when you start to zoom in, you see the dips.
Yep.
And some of those dips at that point in time were huge.
Yep.
30, 40, 50%
Yep.
dip might not show up as big in the long term, but that moment it was really big.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and I don't think, and I think you would agree, like, no one way is right or wrong.
Totally.
You know, you being more like that demotivating you, that doesn't make you lazy. Me
Yeah.
being on the grind or the hustle or
Yeah.
whatever isn't the right way.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
you know, preaching the manifestation, but there's a place for both.
Yes.
And I think even in ways that's a big reason why I've really enjoyed our relationship and our friendship, and also the work we've done professionally is
Yeah.
because you've added a lot of that value
Yeah.
and that consistency of
Yeah.
like great ideas.
Yeah.
Let's pull that together. Going back to you being kind of the editor and the
Yeah.
finisher,
Yeah.
because you just choreograph
Yeah.
and bring something across the line so well.
Yeah.
And I need people like that in my life.
Totally. Well, and I need people like you in my life too, who are just like, stop thinking about it. Let's just go do it.
Yeah.
You know, stop researching it, stop planning, stop, you
Yep.
know, trying to figure it all out before you do it. Just go do it.
Yeah.
You know? And that I've had some really cool experiences in my life when I just like turn my brain off,
100%.
get in my body and just go do something.
Yep.
And it works out.
Yep.
You know? But I have tons of respect and admiration for you.
Yeah.
Just
Ditto.
like launching LLT and just it's been very, very cool. I don't know if people at home don't get to see the whole
Yeah.
picture, you know, but it's been very cool to see this launch out of a garage and bringing on trainers and getting a building and a new space and
Yep.
you know, marketing and new clients and events and the whole thing. And yeah, I mean, just the momentum has been fun to watch, but also just tons of respect for you, even in the plateau and the hard times. And I know you've had really tough experiences, you know, with, you know, trainers and clients and things like that too. It's not all
sure.
roses, but you
Definitely
handle
not.
it so well. And yeah, just ready to see LLT
Heck
just
yeah.
explode, man.
I appreciate that a lot, dude.
Yeah.
And I look forward just to the continued blossoming of our relationship and
Yeah.
also just personally for our kids to continue to grow up
Totally.
together
Yep.
and play outside. But man, I think that's all I got. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah.
as we wrap up?
So just kind of ending this season,
Yes.
are there any moments that you've had with guests, like maybe something a guest said that has really stuck with you?
Yep.
Or like something you just find yourself going back to think about?
Yeah.
Anything, any moments of this podcast season that you
Yeah,
wanna
I mean, I definitely don't want to
highlight?
make any of my other guests upset that I may not mention them or anything.
Sure.
But anyway, like I've had, so it's just cool to see the different chapters and seasons of lives on how I've pulled these guests in from all the way down to like high school and knowing some of these guys to when I was really, really young, to some of these guys like very fresh through business networking and like synergy and just seeing them along a similar journey and path, but in a completely different field. And then other guys that are just wiser that I like really look up to and almost in a way kind of fangirl because of how firm and direct and consistent they are in the way they love their family, lead their wife and their kids, impact their community, and succeed in their business. And it's just, man, I think like there's been some, I mean, Jonathan, our very first episode, like some of his reels that we did, some of his short forms. I think when the very first one we did was how he talked about how you just have to be so sold out for what you do. Like that hit so hard and so real for me. Man, thank you so much for your continued work on it and the short form reels. And man, I think we've really put together a pretty sweet space.
Yeah, it's great.
For sure.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for being a part of this episode number 11 with the Michael Child, also with Forward Film Co. You can find this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Stay tuned for some of the reels, and then we'll keep you guys updated as we get into the next season, as we get through this really hot summer, and share some of the excitement for our next guest. So thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Love it.
Boom.